Hi there, my name is Ben Tepfer. I'm a senior technical evangelist here at Adobe. My focus is working with developers like yourselves and your organizations on digital transformation across Adobe and Microsoft technologies. Now, if you're not already familiar with kind of what we're doing from an Adobe perspective, specifically around digital experience, or as we think of it, and digital marketing as a broader spectrum, what we do is we create technologies that empower businesses to transform customer experiences. And we look at the entire life cycle of the customer journey, all the way from when somebody discovers a brand to how they connect with them, whether it's in person, on mobile devices. And so we do that through a variety of technologies that we call our Adobe Experience Cloud. Now, if you're not familiar with the Experience Cloud, let me give you a quick rundown of it. It's, again, all about personalizing experiences on every single digital online, but also offline touchpoint as well. With the Analytics Cloud, we're helping businesses understand their websites with digital analytics. And Audience Manager brings in our second and third party data as a DMP. So we're looking at how people behave on the web. How long are they on a web page? What do they click on? How do they navigate from there? And all the AI that goes around that, like attributing attribution as well as identifying anomalies. In our Marketing Cloud, it's all about one-to-one messaging, whether that's personalizing a web experience with Experience Manager or sending one-to-one messages with Campaign or Marketo Engage, and then using Target to test and A/B test and multivariate test on different experiences. Advertising Cloud, as you can guess, all about the advertising experience, from buying through deploying those advertisements on everything from Bing search and forward. And then the Commerce Cloud is all about making moments shoppable. But where I'm really going to focus today is the product that we have built underneath all of this, specifically for the enterprise, for the developer like yourself to get their hands on the technology. Because the power of all this working together is that we can deliver these really great experiences. And so that's really what the Adobe Experience Platform is. And the Adobe Experience Platform, first and foremost, is built on Microsoft Azure. And that's really key because we made the choice to build on Azure because of the flexibility, because of the security, and because of all the great reasons that you're already developing on the technology. So what is Experience Platform? Well, when you think about a customer experience, let's think about retail, for instance. You go online, you browse a new pair of jeans, you add them to your cart, but you don't make a purchase. A little bit later on, you're browsing on Instagram and you get an ad re-engaging you about that same product. Now you're on a different device. You click on that ad, you log into your account, you complete that purchase, and you get a thank you email. A few weeks later, you receive your jeans in the mail, and unfortunately, maybe there's a rip in them. So you call into customer service and you talk to somebody on the phone. They say, okay, we can replace those, no problem. In fact, do you want to stop by our store right now and see what else we have in stock? So you go into the store. When you approach the store, you get a personalized push notification welcoming you to the store. Every touch point that I've just talked about is digital. And from your enterprise business standpoint, they're in different data silos. And so Experience Platform serves as a single place to bring those different pieces of data together, specifically for the marketing experience-led business. And it's all of your data sources, right? It's your CRM from Microsoft Dynamics. It's your blob storage in Azure. It's streaming events like Event Hubs, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. It's financial, operational. It's all of this data, both in batch and real time, coming together into what we call our Experience Data Model. Experience Data Model, or XDM, is built alongside CDM. So it works great with that. Any of those CDM compliant applications can immediately map to the Experience Data Model. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this here, but all this data synchronizes around a single profile. So at any point in time, as a developer, as a marketer, I can pull up a single profile of an individual. Profile is that one go-to spot where I've got all the information: CRM data, behavioral timestamp data, so time event data, purchase history. All of that different data is brought together in a real-time profile. And by the way, we built this all API first. So I'm going to show you some of those APIs in action today. But I also want to touch on the fact that the AI and machine learning capabilities allow you as a developer to run your machine learning. Jupyter Science Notebook is built right into the product. You can access that within Experience Platform. So that's a quick rundown of what Experience Platform is. Now, what I want to do next is talk a little bit about what's under the hood of that, right? And as I mentioned, there's a lot of ways that you can begin to bring data in and bring data out of Experience Platform. We have a variety of data connectors, and as I mentioned, they're all API first. So I'm going to show you the UI in a couple minutes here, but what you'll end up seeing is that every process you can do from the UI, you can do through API, as well as you can do more through API even so, because you're building it first. And it's built for real-time interactions, right? And so for streaming data connectors, what that means is we can bring in behavioral or analytical data at the event that it happens, such as with Azure Event Hub. And then on the other end of it, you can see that we've got all these APIs for accessing that data, right? We want to leverage the Experience Platform running on Azure, but we want to make sure that that data is available to the rest of the enterprise as well. So everything from point lookup, data access APIs, and IO events, which we'll talk about, those webhooks that helps you connect into your existing applications. So again, built for extensibility, built for the API. To give you an idea of what Microsoft specific technologies this works with, on the left hand side you see these Microsoft sources, right? These are out of the box data connectors that let you bring Microsoft data into Experience Platform. And again, in Experience Platform, you're going to have data from across the enterprise. So you may have behavioral data, you may have contact center, you may have mobile data in there, and you bring in that Microsoft data alongside it. So here are just a few examples of what we're doing here. So everything from Azure Blob, Azure Synapse, Dynamics 365. So they're all available to you out of the box. And then when we talk about activation, right, that's the ability to take the learnings from within platform, right? We've now synchronized all this data in the platform. We can run analysis on it. We can do really advanced real-time streaming segmentation on that data. And now we can use those audiences across the board. We can send them over to Bing for advertising. We can do people-based destinations with LinkedIn. We can send them to event hubs. We can send them to Dynamics. So the ability to access that data that's really been built upon is one of the key principles of platform. So what does this mean for you, right? As the developer, we want to make sure that everything about our products and our technology across Adobe is built for you. And we've got a few different ways that we build out for this. First and foremost, API management, right? We build many of our technologies open with APIs. A lot are open source, and we'll talk about that. But the ability to build out your own integrations with our tools is really key. We want to help you engage and build upon our technology. For a developer, there's a bunch of key features here. We'll talk about IO Runtime, which is our serverless functions, in a few minutes, but it's also the command line, which we'll dig into in a few moments. It's around the seamless kind of experience. So if your team members are already using Adobe applications like Experience Platform or Analytics or Campaign, right, you are used to a certain design standard. We open source that design standard so you can build your own applications that look and feel just like our technology. And speaking of that, we're going to talk about how we're doing that with third-party custom applications in a few moments here. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I want to give you an idea of the breadth of what we're doing for developers like yourselves. We've built out a robust set of documentation. We give you an IO console to access all of your API endpoints, build out custom events, and even access from the command line, which is the way many of our developers, including myself, like to work with our products. Now, speaking of this, one of the key fundamental pieces that we need to talk about, again, is IO Runtime. And this is the serverless platform that really lets you begin to integrate, extend, and customize all of the Adobe technology with specific functions and respond to events. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that already. So we know that it's serverless and scalable, but it's also built for availability. Now, why is Runtime different than, let's say, other serverless applications? It's because it's built to work with that Adobe technology already. Right? And so if you're already an Adobe developer, you know that this is a key tool that you need to build out your technology. You can code in JavaScript, you can run it in Node.js. We really think about runtime as the Swiss Army knife, right? Translating from one data model to another, CDM to XDM. This is really where runtime starts to come into place. It's kind of that glue that ties together the different integrations across our technology. Now, it's pre-integrated with Adobe IO events and the API gateway. What that means is that we are going to show you out-of-the-box events, right? We'll talk about what that means in a moment here. But an event is something that is predetermined, and originally it was something that we only had our developers and our engineers at Adobe would build events into a product. Events are when something happens, right? You open an email, that's sort of an event. But we've also made it accessible now for you as a developer to build out your own custom events with Runtime. And that leads us to the third category that I'm going to touch on today, and it's called Project Firefly. It's a brand new project. Somewhere around this screen, I think there are links to sign up for it. As a developer, you should totally check this out. Because what Project Firefly is, it's a complete set of everything that you need to build a third-party application that extends your Adobe technology. So when you think about the integrations that we already have, this takes it to a new level, specifically for a Microsoft developer who's already using other technologies, other APIs. This is where IO and Firefly really begin to come into play. Just a couple of key pieces that I want to highlight for you about what Firefly is. Again, it's everything that you need. So it's the design framework. It's actually even the content hosting if you need that as well. It's the command line of the SDKs. It comes with runtime, and it's leveraging cloud services. So it's everything that you need to begin to build out an application with our technology. This is a quick look at what that design system looks like. It's called Spectrum. And as I said, it's open source, it's accessible, it's available in CSS and React. And what that means is that you can easily build applications that look and feel just like your native Adobe apps. Now, just to give you an idea about what's happening under the hood from a Firefly standpoint, right? So first of all, there's the end user experience, right? That single page application running with React Spectrum. Now, on the back end are all these different services that we're providing. So the microservices, the orchestration, as I mentioned, the CDN, the data, file storage, and then like I also said, the custom events. I'll give you an example of what all this means in just a few moments here. And that application is not just an Adobe application, right? You're not just extending Adobe APIs. You can bring in your own APIs as well, your third-party tools, and you can really build out technology. So if you're already in Adobe Shop and in Microsoft Shop, there's some really interesting things that we can talk about doing there. And from a developer's point of view, we built it out to be everything from the Visual Studio designing, to the debugging, to the JS libraries, command line. Everything that we're talking about today is available for you on GitHub to actually get your hands on and try. And then, of course, monitoring operations that go along with that. And just so before we dive into the demo here, the way you build out an application, right? It starts and can always start from the command line. AO app create, we'll show you that in just a moment here, but that's how you start building an application integration with Adobe. You can move there from Visual Editor to coding and actually deploying a custom application with Adobe and Microsoft Tech to your own organization. Okay, so demo session, I want to dive right into the product. There's 3 key things I want to show you, all right? First of all is the experience platform that I've been talking about. I'll show you the UI for that, how we connect to things like dynamics. Then we're going to look at the API access through Postman. And finally, we'll dive into the command line when we look at Project Firefly. Okay, so our first category we want to talk about is experience platform. And of course, as you're looking at the screen here, you know this is not experience platform. This is, as I'm sure many of you know, Azure. And I've already gone ahead and built out an event hub here, right? And you can see that there's a lot of activity going on. Now, what is this event hub just sending me? Well, this is sending profile level data from Azure to Experience Platform. Now, what does that mean? This is something that we can think about real-time types of data. So things like behavioral, tracking. Let's say you have a product out for delivery and you're tracking its arrival. You can see that it's 4 stops away, 5 stops away. And then each one of those moments, we send you a push notification saying, your delivery is almost here. You may want to head downstairs. Do you want contactless delivery? So the moments that come out of that data are really important. As you can see, this is updating in real time. So let's switch over to Experience Platform. This is really the homepage and the centerpiece for a marketer or developer to start using the UI of the product. There's a ton of functionality here, some of which we're going to go into today. One piece that I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that I do want to highlight for you is the data science capability. If you or individuals in your organization are using Jupyter Labs and Jupyter Notebooks, this is exactly the notebook view, and it's sitting on top of all the data within the Experience Platform already. So what is that data? So let's go over here to our data sources. Now, this is where I can bring in out-of-the-box data connectors into Platform. And as you can see, there's a bunch of Microsoft ones already. So blob storage, data lake Gen 2, file storage. What I want to highlight for you here is if we scroll a little bit further down, we've got is CRM. So Microsoft Dynamics is one of those accounts that's already accessible for you to bring in data into Platform and real automatically. And you can see there's different flows here. And what is a flow? Well, a flow allows me to actually map that data within Dynamics into the data within Platform. And so as you can imagine, I've got a lot of different ways of identifying people within Platform because I have all these different data sets. And now I'm going to be synchronizing them all together. Why it's really important is that I can select any field within Dynamics. And what I can do is map it directly into an existing data set here. So let's go ahead and select one of my demo data sets. And by the way, data lands in Platform in one of 2 ways. Either as related to a profile, so like think of that as CRM, or as an event. Think of that as behavioral data. And what happens now that's really cool is that I can actually begin to map the CDM data from Dynamics into that experience data model within Experience Platform here. And what you can see here is it's automatically pulling up those fields. Looks like we've got a little bit of work to do on the Adobe. But these are the fields from Dynamics, and you can see that I can easily go into the data model within Experience Platform and assign where these fields would go here. Now, Dynamics data is going to be batch level data. So we synchronize it, let's say, every 15 minutes, right? It doesn't need to be happening in real time. And I'm going to look at the existing accounts that I already have, and you can see that I've already begun to set this configuration up. And as you can imagine, if you're a user of Event Hub already, you can bring in the different event hubs that are already linked within Azure. So it's super easy to actually go ahead and create a new connection. I've already done that for our purposes today. We can begin to bring in that data. Now, what happens to that data? Well, as I mentioned, it's going to land within what we call a data set. So if I go to our data sets here, I'm going to specifically pull up our Event Hub data set. And what you're going to see here is that we're able to in real time bring in all of that data. And it's in real time actually mapping the data from that Event Hub moment into Experience Data Model, XDM. I can go ahead and preview what that first line of data may look like here. It's my own account, of course. But you can see this is the data that's actually coming from the Azure Event Hub. So that's the first piece that I want to touch on. Now, again, I mentioned that all the data in Platform centralizes around a profile or an individual. So what I have here is one of such profiles. You can see there's a bunch of IDs that identify this individual, everything from phone number, email address, customer ID, loyalty ID, CRM ID. We also have this thing called an Experience Cloud ID. Now, this is a unique Adobe identifier that can help tie together your different data sets. A little more about the profile here. You've got all the attributes that are part of it, but you've also got all of the events as well. This is what I was talking about when I mentioned events coming into Experience Platform in real time. In this case, we can see the channel that somebody interacted on, what they did, and the IDs associated with it. So this is a really powerful way to synchronize all of that data together. And I'm going to show you now how you can access this exact profile directly from within the APIs. Okay, so I'm over here in Postman, and I've already opened up a few different collections for Adobe I/O and for those API functionalities here. I want to show a couple of them to you. The first one is the ability to grab a profile. So the profile that I just showed you, as I mentioned, is tied to what we call an Experience Cloud ID. Now, I've already configured the header for this API call here, but what you can see here is that I'm defining the unique ID or the identity of that profile. And all of those IDs that I mentioned are unique ways to pull on a profile. You can see here that I'm calling on the schema, the profile schema. And then, of course, here is the unique ID that ties me back to that individual. So I'll add in the one that we just took a look at. We'll send this. And what you can see here, and I'll scroll through this quickly, you see all of the same IDs tied into this profile here. So this is a quick way as a developer that you can call upon that profile. You can use attributes of it within your own API calls, you can access it, and so forth. And that's one really interesting way that we can leverage some of the APIs from within Platform. And as I said, everything's API first. You could go ahead and post a segment job. You could get a segment job. You could set up a connector. You could export a data set. And again, data types are open to be whether it's a CSV, JSON, or a Parquet file. You can leverage all of those within Experience Platform here. The other piece that I want to show you here is the same sort of experience, but this time I want to focus on the events. You can see there's a ton of lines of data here. I'm not going to look at all of these. But what this is the exact same event level data that I showed you a moment ago within the platform itself. So all these pieces of information are accessible to you directly through the APIs. So there's some really interesting things you can begin to do here when you start to think about, how do I want to leverage profile data? How do I want to bring in real-time actionable data? And how do I want to integrate this into my own systems? A great thing that we already have a lot of customers doing is using this platform level data in things like Dynamics or other kind of call center point of sale systems. You can pull up that data in real time and give people the next best offer, which we can then generate from machine learning and AI. So that's a quick look at some of the APIs available. Check out our documentation because we've got a ton of other ones that are available and documented for you to start playing around with right now. The last piece I want to touch on is that developer experience from the command line in building out custom applications. Now, if you remember, I talked about Firefly, that extensibility on top of platform, the ability to build your own custom applications. And you can see here that I've already installed the AIO plugin. Now, when I run this, what you're going to see is the beautiful, of course, Adobe A and all the information that goes along with it. Let's go ahead and create a new application. Okay, and we are ready to start building and playing around. So the next thing we want to do is build out a Firefly specific application. So we're going to do AIO app init, and we're going to call this Ignite. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to begin to build out our Firefly application. So what we see here is the ability for me to look at all the different organizations that I'm part of, right? And you can imagine that because I do a lot of demos and work with a lot of organizations, there's a lot of these environments here. The one that I want to look at, I can do a quick search for and help narrow down my options here, is ACP Evangelists. Now it's going to get all of the projects that I've already started to build out. I'll show you that in a moment here. Now there's one in particular that I really want to look at here. It's a dashboard, right? And I want to build a custom application with Firefly that lets my marketing team see how all of our emails are performing, but not even need to go into the email tool itself to be able to actually send out special personalized messages. So we're going to build an interactive dashboard for them. We'll put it in our production environment. And what we're going to see here in the config file are all the different APIs associated with this. So you're going to see here that we're going to pull in Adobe Campaign APIs and platform level APIs. We're going to deploy all the actions. Here are the things that we've talked about, like runtime actions and IO events. I'm going to add all my APIs. We're going to call these generic. And now what we're doing is we're actually creating an application that I can begin to run right away. Now, for our demo purposes today, we're not going to complete this entire process here. But what I want to show you is what the end result is going to look like for you. So when you actually end up running this process, what you get on the back end are all the files that you see over here. In our manifest file, you can see the key information about this application. So for instance, you can see the tenant name, that's what I showed you a moment ago, the service key, which obviously I'm not going to show you. But you can see all of the kind of variables that may be related to this specific application are accessible to you here. These all come to me from the IO console and let me build that Firefly application. The environment file and the console JSON file are where we're storing all the variables, and I'm definitely not going to show you because that's where the keys and information are to build out this application and so forth. But what I do want to touch on here is the actions category. So we give you out-of-the-box actions that you can start to play around with, getting profile information. So things like your API key, your authorization, you can pull these in here with these out-of-the-box kind of getting started templates. And then you also have the ability to test these applications as well. Now, the last piece here is this web folder. And as I mentioned, one of the advantages to building a Firefly app with our APIs is that you actually truly can begin to be able to build out web interfaces as well. So if you look in here, I've already integrated with this Spectrum, React Spectrum that I talked about, which is, you remember, because I know you're paying attention at this point, right? That's what I thought. What we're seeing here is the ability to build out that web interface for that application itself. So now I'm able to build out an app that I can then use across my organization. So let's actually take a look at that. Okay, so I've already have all the tools I need here. So what I'm going to go ahead and run this application. Now, because I'm launching this application in the exact same instance of Experience Platform and Experience Cloud that I built it in, you can see here that I now have an interactive dashboard where I can go ahead and send any email communications out here. So again, this is a really easy application to build out. And it's, again, built for the marketer to be able to go in and quickly see all the emails. We could have metrics in here and actually add actionability into this experience as well. So thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully this has been a quick and helpful example about how you can start to develop with Adobe and our Experience platform. There's a ton of integrations, as you can see, with Microsoft, and we're super excited to see what you continue to build. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, email. Happy to collaborate and build something amazing with you guys. Have a great day.